Hey everyone and welcome. Today we're jumping into a really powerful, though pretty short, text from Ephesians. Think of it as a guide to conflict, but with a huge twist. It starts by completely flipping our idea of the battlefield on its head. So yeah, let's get right into it.
All right, to kick things off, let's think about this for a second. In any conflict, no matter what it is, what's the very first rule? The one thing you absolutely have to do.
That's it, right? Know your enemy. It's the absolute cornerstone of any strategy, and that's exactly what our source text is all about today. But here's the catch. It defines the enemy in a way that, well, it changes absolutely everything.
Okay, so first up, an urgent appeal. The text we're looking at isn't just some casual observation, It's framed as a really serious, realistic warning about our moral struggles. Which leads us right into our next point, not flesh and blood. Because to figure out who the real enemy is, the text does something pretty radical first. It redefines the entire battlefield.
And boom, here it is, the core statement of the whole thing. The struggle is not against flesh and blood alone. Now think about that. This points to probably the most common mistake any of us make in a conflict, right? We see the person right there in front of us, the flesh and blood, and our first instinct is to say, yep, that's the enemy.
So this sets up a really crucial distinction. On one hand, you've got the struggle you can see, the person, the argument, that super frustrating situation. But what the text is telling us is that this isn't the real struggle. So that leaves us with a huge question, doesn't it? If the real enemy isn't people, then who or what are we actually supposed to be up against? Which brings us to our next section, cosmic forces of darkness. So who is the real opponent? Well, the text doesn't leave us hanging. It gets very specific and identifies the real enemy as these vast, unseen forces. And this is where the scale of this shift just becomes incredible. The opposition isn't another person. It's this whole hierarchy of unseen forces, rulers, authorities, supernatural powers, and wicked spiritual armies. It's a total pivot from the personal to the principle, from what we can see to what we can't. And if we break that down, you can see there's a real structure here. When it says rulers and authorities, that suggests an organized system, right? A hierarchy of influence. And then supernatural powers and spiritual armies, well, that suggests the real conflict is happening on a totally different plane, one that's way beyond what we can physically see. It's driven by forces and principles, not by personalities.
All right, so if the enemy isn't a person, but a power, how in the world are you supposed to respond to that? How do you stand firm?
And that really gets to the heart of it. If the fight is cosmic against these huge, organized spiritual forces, how can any one person possibly stand a chance? It seems completely impossible on the surface.
But the text actually offers a really clear two-step strategy. Step one is huge. Recognize the real enemy. You have to stop fighting flesh and blood. But step two, this is the real game changer. Draw your might from God. The core idea here is that the kind of strength you need for this kind of battle, well, you can't just generate it yourself. It has to come from somewhere else, from a divine source of power.
And really, when you boil it all down, the entire message hinges on this one powerful idea. The struggle isn't personal, it's principle. And that idea reframes every single conflict, right? It shifts our focus away from the person standing right in front of us to the unseen principles and forces that are actually at play. So this leaves us with a pretty big question to think about, one that applies to just about any area of our lives. How does your whole understanding of a problem change when you completely redefine who or what the opponent is? Thanks for joining me.